Now that we have the roles, permissions, and users tables already set up, I want to go ahead and start working on the admin. So let's head into the text editor and start setting that up. Now the good thing is, because we have already set up the user controller in here, we can use that to pretty much work on our admin controller. So let's go ahead and set that up. In here, I'm going to do sail artisan, make controller. We'll put it in the admin folder, and then it'll just be admin controller. We'll make it resourceful, and the model I want to use is the user model, of course, because we don't have an admin model. We don't really need an admin model. We're going to be using the user model to apply to these admins. Let's get rid of that. As you can see, we have it here where our user is being pushed into those functions. So let's go ahead to the web routes and we'll start working on that. And I'm just going to do one at a time. This will be for admins. We just want to see them displaying in our table. And the route name will just be admins. Let's go up top and import that. Admin controller, I'll go ahead, save it. And then we'll go ahead and start working on that controller. I'm going to grab the one from the user controller just because it'll be pretty much the exact same thing. We'll just go ahead and adjust it accordingly. The render page will be admins. This will be admins. That's what we're going to loop over. We're going to be using that user model where is admin equals 1, because the admins are going to have a Boolean value of 1. We're going to bring in the roles with the ID and the name. They're going to be listed by latest, and then we'll have a get after that. And here we're just going to be able to loop over the roles so that we can use them within our Vue-Multiselect. So let me make sure to import the inertia, import the role, and that will be from the app models role. Save that. And then we'll come down to the resources, and then we'll go ahead and create that. So I'm just going to copy the users index. It'll be in admins folder or index.vue. Paste that in. And let's see. This is going to be admins. We're not going to worry about the function just yet. In fact, I'll comment it out just so that we know that that's what we're doing. We'll go ahead and change the titles in here. The actions are going to be the same. This is going to be props admins. I'm just going to comment out the edit button for right now. Let's come down here. And I'm going to take this one and I'm going to comment all of this out just for now, just so that we can see whatever it is on the page. Let's go to the browser and take a look. Now, before we do that, let's go to the sidebar and add that link to this list of tables here. The route is admins.index. That should be admins. Let's take a look. Okay, let's look over here under our tables and we have it here. And there we go. We have a list of all of our admins, and that's weird. But we do have the list of our admins in here. And that's because these also have the is admin status of 1. So let's go and see how we're going to work on this edit. Well, first we can go over to the web routes and work on that route. So I'm going to copy this one, paste it. This is going to be for admin/user. Admin controller. I don't know why I deleted that from there, but there we go. Update, and this will be admin's update. Now we can go over to the controller. Again, let's go ahead and grab the function from our update in here. Okay, let's see what we're going to need and what we're not going to need. Well, before we do that, let's make sure that we can access this route from the front end. So I'll go ahead and I'll just dyne dump just so that it shuts it down. We can see what we get when we do finally hit this route. Let's go up top and work our way down. Well, we've already changed the props that were coming in. Our role options are pretty much going to be the same. The form is going to be the same. The close modal and the open edit should be the same. The only thing that I do believe we need to change in here is the admins. And I also want to put the clear errors here. Matter of fact, I'll put it back on the user's index as well, just because if we have a form and we're going to have some errors for whatever reason, I want to make sure that we're able to clear those when we do clear it. So we have the ID, the name, and then if we come down here, we have const edit user. So this is going to be edit admin. Then the route is going to be admins. And then instead of user here, it is admin has been updated. Now we can go down to the button, which our first button is the edit button. And let's make sure that we have the correct thing in here. Open edit item. Yep, that's good. Uncomment the modal. This will still be edit current role. Click prevent close modal. All of this is fine, fine, fine. As I said, everything is pretty much the same as the users table. And you can even, if you want to extract this into a component, you can extract it into whatever you want. But this is a really simple project, so I'm not going to bother doing all that. We only have the two that are pretty much identical. So I'll go ahead and save this. Now we have our buttons in here. Let's go ahead and I want to change this away from latest because there aren't going to be many of these. So I'm going to change their order of them, which is fine. But for now, we'll go ahead and edit this moderator. And if we go ahead and change them to a developer, let's say update, might need to change that because I didn't change the function name, which was at the top of the form. Edit admin. Save that, try it again. Let's see what's going on. Okay, I misspelled that. I don't know if you can see right here, you can see I misspelled it. This should be right here. Save and try it again. Okay, good. So I'm going to close this. As you can see, we have the selected role is the developer with the ID of 4. So let's go ahead and make this work on the back end. Let's go ahead and head back to that admin controller so we can start dealing with this functionality. I'm going to remove that die and dump and let's take a look. Well, we have the request to validate for the roles, which is fine. That's absolutely fine. And we also have the current role variable where we are looking for whatever this user's roles are, the first one, so that we have that. We'll have the ID of the role associated with that user. So if not is set, requested roles, the first one's ID. If it's been changed in the modal, then we'll assign this admin role with whatever that value is first. If it's not, then we'll assign the admin role variable with the requested, meaning it's not been changed, and we're going to pull it from the array, and that's what's going to be for that admin role. Everything is the exact same. But there are a couple more things that we need to check for when it comes to admins. Before we get to that, I'm going to make some space here so that we don't have any duplication of that. And first I want to check if they are already an admin. And then I also want to check if they are already an admin and are getting demoted to user. So the first one I want to look for is whether or not they are already an admin, meaning there is admin is one, they have an admin role attached to it. It doesn't matter which admin role as long as it's an admin role. The next one is whether or not that is the case. In addition to what we're doing now is going to change them into a standard user instead of an admin. Now the next one I want to check is if they are already a user but are given admin role. In the previous video when we were doing the users, we seeded the database with all of our roles and admins and everything, and all of the users had an is admin of 1, meaning they were all standard users. They all had an is admin of 1, but we needed that user with the user role to have an is admin of 0 instead of having an is admin of 1 like they ended up having. So this is kind of that sort of same situation where they are already a user, meaning they have an is admin of 0, but they are given another role, something like admin or moderator. They have the actual role, but their is admin is 0. So that's a use case that we're going to want to check for. The next one, this is the last one that I want to check for, is if they are already a user, but is admin equals 1. Again, that's the use case that we had for users where they were supposed to be a standard user, but their is admin was 1, but the role that they had attached to them was user, right? So that's the use case that we're looking for in this particular table. Let's go ahead and get started with that. Now, because we did this with the users, we have at least half of what we needed in here. So I'm going to take this one and I'm going to actually bring it up. If the current role ID does not equal 5 and the admin role ID does not equal 5, they are already an admin. All we'll need to do here is user. Instead of this, we need to give them that role. Sync roles. Admin role ID. Because we are giving admin roles to these users, or we are taking admin roles away from these admins. They are already an admin. We're looking for if the current role ID, the current role that they have now, and the admin role ID that we are looking from whatever's coming from the Vue-Multiselect, whatever that is, they are already an admin. Then we are going to sync the admin role that's coming in from the front end. Let's go ahead and do the second one. And I'm going to just copy this one just for right now, just to get us started. So this, instead of if, will be else if the current role ID does not equal 5 and the admin role ID equals 5. They are already an admin and are getting demoted to user. Then we can sync this role, same thing with the role ID, and we can update to 0. Now the next one we're looking for is if they are already a user but are given an admin role. I am going to go ahead and bring this one up. else if the current role ID equals 5 and the admin role ID does not equal 5, then we are going to user sync roles admin role. But we don't have to change the update in here because the isAdmin is already 1, so we don't actually have to do that there. But we're going to have one more, which is else, which is the last condition. If that's the case, then we're going to take this, paste it in, and that should be good. Now we can return back to the admins.index. To go through these really quickly, I already did these when we set up the users table, so that's not really going to be an issue. All this is really saying is what we're getting from the Vue-Multiselect from the dropdown that we have coming in from the front end, right? We're just seeing what the admin role is, if it's in an array or if it's not in an array, and that's all that that's looking for. The first condition that we're checking is if they're already an admin, their current role ID equals something like 4, where it's a moderator, or 3 moderator, 4 developer, or whatever. And the admin role ID that they're getting from the front also does not equal 5. Basically, let's say moderator to developer or something like that. Then all we have to do is sync the roles because everything else should be Gucci. Right? The next condition we're looking for is if they are already an admin and are getting demoted to user. So if this user has a isAdmin of 1 and their role is something like developer, moderator, whatever, and we're changing them to a standard user. So we're going to have to sync the roles, which is the admin role coming in, whatever that was, should be the user role. And then we're updating the isAdmin to equal 0. We're taking away their isAdmin status. The next condition is if they are already a user but are given an admin role. So like the conditions with the users, if they are on the admins table, they have an isAdmin of 1, but their role ID is user, then we just want to change it to whatever the moderator role is or the developer, whatever the other role is that we're grabbing from the Vue-Select. Now, if they are already a user, but their isAdmin is 1, they are on this page, they have the role of a user, everything about them says user, except for their isAdmin is 1, and it should be 0. We're going to change that 1 to a 0. That should be good. Let's make sure to save all of this. Okay, let's try it now. Gonna go ahead, refresh. Let me also change this from latest. So in here, I'm just gonna go up top and remove that latest. Okay, let's try it now. Since we made a change on the server, I'm going to go ahead, refresh, and let's start with the first one, which is developer. Now, let's say I want to change this developer to a standard user. We'll update, and now that developer is no longer here. If we go to our users page, you can see now the developer is here. They have the role ID of user, and they are now on the users table instead of the admins table. Let's go ahead and change this back to developer. Let's go back to the admins table and let's try something else. I want to go ahead and edit this developer again, but instead of a developer, let's change them to a moderator. So the name of that developer was developer. Keep in mind, when this is name here, it's not that it's the role name. I just put it as the role name, but this could be Bob Vila for all I know, right? The name of the user is Bob whatever. But in our case, I just used the role names to name them. It's just an example, so just go with it. This is their role name. This is the username. And this is the role name. Our user with the name of developer has a role now of moderator, just like our user with the name of moderator also has a role of moderator. And we can go back and forth and change this up as much as we like. The use cases are pretty good. What I do want to do is I want to try a quick test. If we go to our database, I'm going to open up the tables and I want to take a look at the user with the name developer, the developer user that we have. There is admin is 1. I'm going to go ahead and, well, I'll leave that there like that, but let's go to the role user table. And that user is, what was that user? I've forgotten the username already. The ID is 4. That's this user 4 with a role ID of 3. What if I change this role ID to 5 because 5 is for the user role. I'm going to apply. That should be good. Let's check the browser and see what happened. I'm going to go ahead and refresh this. So we've given them the role of user. This is the developer user with the name developer. And now that developer user has a role of user, meaning there is admin is 1, but their role ID is 5, which means they shouldn't be on this page. What can we do? Well, we can edit. Go ahead and edit. We didn't have to change anything because it was already in the Vue-Multiselect with the user role in there already. So if we come back here, they should be here. Where's here? Here is here. They are back on the correct page. We have changed the is admin back to the correct thing. Now let's go ahead and put them back so that we can stay organized and not confuse ourselves. Cool, cool, cool. Now that we have our routes pretty much done, our tables pretty much done, I want to go ahead and clean up the routes for this so that it can be nice and neat. So let's go ahead off into the web routes and take a look. Now, these are the authenticated routes that we have coming in from our setup. Now, this is the dashboard and access to the backend, but that's not something that I want to deal with yet. I don't want to deal with authentication yet, but what I do want to do is I want to start condensing our admin routes. As you can see, we have permissions, we have some routes in there, we have our roles, our admins and everything. It just looks really messy in here. What I want to do is I want to create a group. Now our group is going to have a function and some curly brackets, close that off. One of the things that we have here is a prefix, and our prefix for all of our admin routes is, well, admin. We can start there. I'm going to take this. I'm going to say prefix, admin. I'm going to go ahead and grab all of our admin routes. I'm going to paste them in here. And now we can actually go ahead and get rid of this prefix because we're not going to need it anymore. We've gotten ourselves a prefix. What else is pretty consistent? Well, if we look at our route names, we have the same thing where we have admin.permissions, admin.roles, admin.dashboard, so we can also extract that out. I will typically put it after the prefix, and we can just do admin dot so that it can be the separator, which means that now that this is all within this group function, we can also get rid of the admin from in front of here. Cool, so that cleared us up a bit more. Now, something we can also do is create what's called resource routes. Now, resource routes, in a nutshell, all of these routes, when they are in the controller, all of these routes are called resources, right? We can make a controller resourceful. Let's just go to any one of them. All of these functions in here are all resources. So typically when you create a normal Laravel controller and you make it resourceful, it will have 7 different functions, which is index, create, store, update, show, and delete or destroy. I think I listed all 7 successfully, but if not, fight me down in the comments. At any rate, there are 7, but we didn't use all 7 from all of the different controllers. Some of them we just used 1. And some we use 3, some we use 4, some we use 2. we can make some changes and do a refactor to this resource route to really express what we're doing. Typically, if you have only one route that you're using altogether from a controller, then you can create what's called an invocable route or class or what have you, but it calls the invoke function, which means that we can now change this route to just be, get rid of that. We don't need a function on here anymore because we're going to change that in the controller, but we can keep the name. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now let's go ahead to that dashboard controller, spell that all kinds of janky. Instead of using this route like this, we're not using anything else in here, but we can just create a new function. And this one is going to be __ invoke. And we can get rid of these notations in here. I'm going to grab this and move it up here. And then everything else is the exact same. I can even add some notations in here. Typically for the invocable, it will just say handle incoming request. And that just keeps it super simple. Now we can actually get rid of these because we're not actually using any of them. And I know we could have done this initially, however, it's good practice to just create the resourceful route, and then when you're doing cleanup, then you can go ahead and clean it up. I like to do it this way. People like to do it however they want to. It's not up to me to decide what's best for you. This is just what's best for me. So we'll go back to the web routes, and let's just make sure that we can hit that route okay. And this looks to be a weird issue. Let me go ahead and refresh this again. We should be good. Let's go to the dashboard. Our dashboard is still here. Fantastic. That looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and deal with these other ones and get that cleaned up as well. Now with permissions, we're only using 3, and that's not actually true. We should have a store function. I might have accidentally deleted that one. Let's go look. I'm glad you guys have been so patient with me since I've started using NeoVim because, you know, things happen. Yeah, I have a store here. Let's go back to the web routes. Host, permission controller. I guess it doesn't really matter, but in order to make sure that I don't confuse anyone, that is a route that was supposed to be here. We did set it up. We did everything. Go look at that video. It was really good. We can make some changes. Again, as I was saying, a resource route will typically have 7 functions in them. And for this function, we've only used 4 out of the 7. So there's one of 2 ways you could do this. You can use an except function or an only function, meaning let's just start writing it out so that I can be a little bit more clear. So we'll say resource, and we'll do permissions as the name because that's what these are, right? They're all / permissions. Permission controller class, and I'm going to put a semicolon at the end of that. As I said, we're only using 4 of them. If we look at just the resource, then it will imply that we are using all 7, which we're not. You can either do all of the resources except create, update, whatever, or you can do the entire resource but only get, post, patch, delete. The way that I like to do this so that I don't have to overthink it is to just decide, well, if I have 4 here, that means I have 3 left. So for me, I'll just put except, because there's only going to be 3 that we're not using. That will be create, show, and edit. Those are the other 3 that we're not using. We're only using 4 of them out of the 7. That's just the way that I do it. So I'm going to comment these out. And there you have it. So we have an entire resource route with the exception of those 3 other routes. So we can actually move those, create, show, and edit. And now we only have those 4 routes in here that were being used. It's a nice little refactor. Save that. We'll go to the web routes, and then we'll do the next one, which is pretty much the same thing. We're using the roles. We're only using 4, so we can get rid of these. I will leave them here so that you guys can have a record of them. Other than that, I would normally just delete that from there, but this should be good. Our user controller, we're only using 2. I'm going to copy this one. Users. User controller. So now instead of except here, I'll put only, because we're only using the index and the update. That's a nice little refactor for that. I'm going to go ahead, copy this one, and we're going to do the same thing for admins, because the admins and the users, they're pretty much the same. And I'm going to comment that out. Why don't we go to the browser and see if we've broken anything with this refactor? I'm going to go ahead and refresh that since we made changes on the server. We can see permissions, we can see our admins. Let's go ahead and try to edit this admin to, I don't know, moderator. Well, that's interesting. We have an undefined key of array. Well, what's actually happening here? Well, we are doing the admins with root model binding. That little refactor we did has now automatically looked for user where the admin's supposed to go. What's happening here is that we have now changed these to resource routes, which have some very implicit things in it. The biggest thing that it's saying here that's causing that error for us is that in this resource route, we have /users. It is in the admin group, but it is expecting users to sort of be the input for the rest of these functions. Our update is looking for a user with root model binding. It's directly looking for user. And then we have admins, which is looking for admin. But we were injecting a user into it, which for the purposes of these, this is fine. But considering now we're using resource routes, it's not really going to work because it's looking for very specific things. Now to verify that, we're going to open up the terminal, and then we're going to do sail artisan route list. What this will do is it'll print out all of the routes that we have associated in our web routes or what's coming from any of the packages like Jetstream or Fortify, which is going to handle our authentication. But if we go up here, these are the routes that we created. Everything was admin / admins, dashboard permissions, what have you. As you can see here for our patch method, we have admin, users, user. We're injecting that in. Again, it's looking for the singular version of whatever this is. And if we go up to admins, it's looking for /admin, the singular version of what we're putting in as the resource. We need to tell Laravel where to find this admin. So how can we do that? Well, typically what I will do in this instance is use a parameter. And a parameter is a really nice way to still use these resource routes, but inject specific things in it. Here I'll do parameters, and I'm going to add some straight brackets in here. And all I'm going to say is admins equals user. So now it'll be looking for that user model. Let's go ahead, save that, open this up, make that bigger, and then I'll run that command again. If we take a look at our route list, now it's looking for admin, admins, user. Let's go ahead and check the browser and make sure that we're no longer getting an error for that. I'm going to go ahead and refresh. And now again, let's try to change the developer and make the developer into a moderator. Update. And now everything is back to normal. This admin has now been changed to moderator. We don't have any errors, and we have also cleaned up all of our routes. If you're enjoying the content, please go ahead and click that like button as it really does help out the channel. Here's a video YouTube thinks you'll like, and here's a playlist to follow along. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.